And so it was like
those people.
very much this, yes. It was this
the people that we
awakening
need to educate, the people that we need to love into.
No, the people who you need to entertain, the people who you need to serve, the people who pay your salary.
There are moments in celebrity culture where things go sideways, and then there are moments where things completely fly off the rails, catch fire, and get turned into an episode of The Simpsons. Guess which one this is?
Come on.
That's the face of a
Probably.
serial killer.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button. I don't need your business.
Noted.
Thanks.
I'm a narcissist.
That she is. And by the way, the producer of Snow White, his son, knows it.
Rachel Zegler's Snow White drama had already been a slow-motion train wreck. But when The Simpsons, yes, the animated legends known for turning pop culture disasters into comedy gold, dropped their parody of her, and the remake, the situation officially entered "you can't make this up" territory. And let's be clear, they didn't just throw a jab. They went full scorched earth mode. It was subtle, sharp, and so on the nose. You could practically see the tears behind Rachel's PR team's eyes. That wasn't satire. That was a mirror.
Look ahead about this level of narcissism here.
Now, let's rewind the tape and ask a simple question. How did we get here? When Disney announced they were remaking Snow White, most fans were cautiously optimistic. Sure, the live-action remakes haven't all been winners, but this was Snow White, the original, the one that started it all. You'd think Disney would treat it like gold, but instead of keeping it classic with a few modern updates, they handed the keys to a star who seemed more interested in reinventing the wheel by flattening it. Rachel Zegler wasn't shy about how she really felt. In interviews, she flat out dismissed the original movie, mocked the prince, questioned the romance, and made it clear she was correcting the story. I mean, imagine joining the MCU and then doing a press tour talking about how superhero movies are dumb. That's the energy we got. It wasn't bold, it wasn't edgy, it was tone deaf. Fans didn't see a fresh take. They saw someone dissing a classic they loved, then trying to sell them the remake.
That at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
The ego on this girl's ridiculous.
And that's where The Simpsons came in. Gloves off and cartoon fists swinging. In true Springfield fashion, they didn't call Rachel out by name. They didn't need to. The parody princess in their episode was a pitch-perfect caricature. Self-important, overly preachy, obsessed with being seen as revolutionary instead of, entertaining. The best part? They hit every point people had been dragging Rachel for online. The ego, the rants, the "I'm not like other princesses" attitude that somehow made her seem less relatable than a singing woodland creature. It was all there, and because it's The Simpsons, it landed perfectly. Funny? Yes. Savage? Absolutely. On point? More than Rachel's own acting choices, apparently.
When people watched it originally in 1937 in the theaters, it was an amazing experience because for most people, it was the first color movie. But second of all, people had so connected emotionally with the character of Snow White that when she eats from the apple and she dies, people were literally weeping in the theater because they liked the character of Snow White so much.
Now you'd think after months of backlash, a comedy roast wouldn't faze her. But nope. According to multiple sources and internet whispers, Rachel did not take this one lightly. We're talking alleged phone calls to reps, behind the scenes, complaints, maybe even some unfollowing sprees. Suddenly, she wasn't just dealing with critics and trolls. She was now the butt of a national joke, on a show with millions of viewers and decades of credibility. And when you go viral because you got roasted by a cartoon, that's when you know the internet's not on your side anymore. It's watching for sport. Once The Simpsons aired the episode, it didn't take long for the internet to sink its teeth in. Fans immediately pulled side-by-side comparisons of the parody princess and Rachel's real-life interviews. And let's just say, it was way too accurate to be coincidence. Clips of her saying, "I'm not dreaming about true love," played next to animated rants. TikToks were stitched. X, lit up with savage one-liners. The Simpsons did what the box office couldn't: summarize the entire problem in under 90 seconds. That was a real comment. Brutal, but true. Even casual viewers who didn't care about the film were tuning in, not to watch the movie, but to watch the meltdown. That's when you know the narrative has slipped out of your control.
I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again.
You'd think being parodied by The Simpsons would be a badge of honor. They've roasted everyone from politicians to pop stars to entire religions. But the thing about The Simpsons is this: when they decide to drag you, they don't just clown around. They dig straight into the real issues you thought people forgot about. Their takedown of the Snow White remake wasn't random. It was targeted. The parody princess wasn't just a character, she was a composite of everything the public has been roasting Rachel Zegler for all year. The overconfidence, the smugness, the way she lectured fans instead of connecting with them. It wasn't exaggeration. It was accurate, and that's what made it hit harder than anything Rachel's PR team could have prepared for. And here's the twist. The Simpsons said out loud what millions of fans were already thinking. That this whole remake felt like a vanity project gone wrong, led by someone who didn't understand the assignment, but made sure we all knew she thought she was better than it.
Because right now there's more dwarves on this podcast than there are in the new Snow White movie.
Now, usually when a controversy gets this loud, studios step in. They smooth things over, spin the story, release a carefully worded statement about artistic freedom or respect for creative interpretation. But this time, crickets. Disney didn't say a word. No response to the parody. No defense of Rachel. No, let's support our star through this tough time. Just silence. And that silence spoke volumes. Internally, you know the studio saw that episode. You know they watched that cartoon character rip apart everything they were trying to sell, and still nothing. Why? Because deep down, Disney might actually agree with the roast. They just can't say it out loud. It's not that they don't care, it's that they probably can't afford to defend it anymore. Snow White was supposed to be a flagship film. Now it's radioactive. Every time they try to push it, the internet slaps them back harder. And at some point, even a billion-dollar studio realizes it's better to say nothing than to remind people this thing exists.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Say it louder so your other eye can hear you.
So we didn't do that this time.
Let's talk about Rachel's PR team for a second, because this whole situation didn't just implode on its own. It was helped along by some of the most baffling media decisions in recent memory. When the backlash first started, the playbook should have been simple. Own it. Walk it back. Show a little humility. Remind people you do respect the original, even if your version is different. But that's not what happened. Instead, we got even more interviews, more sound bites, more spicy little comments about how the story needed to change and how this version of Snow White was finally getting it right. Each new quote wasn't damage control. It was gasoline on a fire. And then came the memes, the edits, the parody clips. People were taking Rachel's real-life interviews and overlaying them with the Simpsons roast, syncing her words up with the cartoon's attitude, and it fit. That's how you know the image is cracked beyond repair. When a satirical cartoon becomes a more believable version of you than your own PR.
There was an in-depth piece, like a behind-the-scenes piece, talking about how they've been in a full meltdown about this girl for a couple of years now.
Disney fans aren't casual. They're loyal. They're passionate. And when they feel disrespected, they bite back. Rachel didn't just criticize a story. They felt like she criticized them. The nostalgia, the memories, the love they've had for Snow White since they were kids. You can't expect people to support your remake when you're out here saying the original message was wrong and outdated. It wasn't just bold, it was insulting. And now, with The Simpsons putting it on, blast, the fan base feels validated. All those people who were told they were overreacting, now they've got a primetime comedy show backing their side. It's no longer a niche complaint, it's mainstream. This is where things start snowballing. Because when fans turn against the lead, and the studio goes quiet, and pop culture starts piling on, there's no more comeback waiting in the wings. Just more fallout.
Their star, Rachel Zegler, was so unlikable, said she hated Snow White, mocked the fact that there was a prince, and that she falls in love as opposed to leaning into her own power. We could go on.
Here's what people don't talk about enough. Hollywood's watching this happen in real time. Casting directors, producers, execs, they're not just tracking box office numbers. They're tracking public sentiment. And when a star becomes synonymous with controversy, meltdown, and now Simpsons parody, that reputation sticks. This is more than just bad press. This is career damage. Not permanent, but definitely bruised. Because while Rachel was out front taking the hits, other young actresses were waiting quietly in the wings. Just as talented, just as camera ready, but without the baggage. The industry remembers things like this. Not because they're petty, but because they're scared. Scared of headlines, scared of backlash, scared of spending $200 million on a project and getting clowned by an animated sitcom that hasn't been relevant. since the iPhone 4.
Literally no offense to anything. They're very proud to cast a Latino actress as Snow White. It makes no sense to me. You're progressive in one way, but you're still making that backward story of 7 dwarves living in a cave. What the are you doing, man?
So here's the bottom line. The Simpsons didn't just roast a movie. They triggered a domino effect. They turned a crumbling narrative into a full-on collapse. They gave fans a voice, handed critics a louder microphone, and made Rachel Zegler the punchline of a joke she helped write. What was meant to be a quirky live-action reboot turned into a cautionary tale about ego, misreading the audience, and forgetting that when you play with beloved classics, you better know who you're performing for.
Cheering for herself.
You know the roast hits different when people stop laughing with you and start laughing at you. After The Simpsons aired their parody, the reaction didn't blow over in 24 hours like some throwaway controversy. It spread. It became the new lens people used to look at everything Rachel Zegler had said for the past year. Suddenly, every clip, every quote, every smug comment about the original Snow White was being rewatched, reanalyzed, and stitched together with that Simpsons episode like it was a true crime documentary. What should have been just another animated jab turned into a cultural exclamation point. Fans weren't just mocking Rachel anymore. They were done with her. The public's patience hit zero. And the result? A full-blown reputation crash.
And to put 7 people with dwarfism on camera in a major Disney movie, there's still power there. If the story is offensive, change the story. Don't change the characters.
Wow. Social media wasn't just reacting. It was thriving off the drama. People were practically building entire content ecosystems off this fallout. YouTubers dropped breakdowns with titles like The End of Rachel Zegler's Snow White Era, or Why Fans Are Done Pretending This Is Okay. TikTok became a battlefield of clips, side-by-sides of Rachel's interviews and The Simpsons roast, edited with captions like Spot the Difference or Simpsons writers didn't miss. One video showed her saying, "We're rewriting Snow White for the modern age," immediately followed by the parody princess screeching at background characters in the cartoon. Twitter X was the same story. Hashtags like Not My Snow White and Zegler MELTDOWN started trending again, months after the film's original controversy started cooling down. That's how you know this wasn't just backlash. This was a revival tour of everything fans hated about the project.
And they postponed the release of this thing, Ben, for a year because their star, Rachel Zegler, was so unlikable, told all Trump supporters that they could f off.
And when the meme wave hits a certain height, mainstream outlets start sniffing around. Suddenly, websites that had ignored the drama were now publishing think pieces like, "Why Rachel Zegler's PR problem isn't going away," or "Did The Simpsons say what Disney couldn't?" Outlets like Variety, BuzzFeed, and even BBC started circling back to the Snow White remake, not because of the film, but because the fallout had become the story. The narrative officially flipped. It wasn't young actress takes bold stance anymore. It was young actress publicly implodes under pressure. Once that tone shifts in the media, it's hard, really hard to reverse.
You don't particularly see people who, look like me or are me playing roles like that. So it was definitely when it got announced.
She wasn't a stalker, by the way.
That was like trending on Twitter for days because all of the people were angry.
Meanwhile, Disney's strategy went from awkward defense to complete radio silence. There were no statements, no clarifications, not even a "we support our cast." They just let the storm rage. And that tells you everything. A studio that big, that powerful, going totally mute, that's not indifference. That's quiet distancing. Internally, they know The Simpsons didn't just lampoon the project, they dismantled it. They turned the entire situation into a punchline so widespread, it's now part of the film's legacy. The executives probably aren't worried about box office numbers anymore. They're worried about how far the punchline will spread, and honestly, they might already be eyeing the next remake, hoping everyone forgets this one even happened.
And so it was like
those people.
Very much this, yes. It was this
the people that we
awakening
need to educate, the people that we need to love into awareness.
love them in the right direction.
Let's be real. Hollywood doesn't love drama. It loves results. And right now, Rachel Zegler isn't bringing either. Studios have long memories when it comes to public perception. When a star becomes more known for being controversial than bankable, the offers slow down. Producers start whispering. Casting agents move on to safer options. Other rising stars, less polarizing, just as talented, start taking the spotlight. And even though Rachel has talent right now, She has the wrong kind of spotlight. She's no longer just the girl from West Side Story. She's the girl who tanked a Disney classic and got clowned by The Simpsons. That label sticks, fair or not. If she wants to bounce back, it's going to take more than a new role. It'll take humility, reinvention, and maybe a long break from microphones.
No, the people who you need to entertain, the people who you need to serve, the people who pay your salary.
In the end, the fans had the last laugh. Not critics, not execs, not even cartoon writers. It was the people who grew up loving Disney, who wanted just one moment of magic again, who finally threw up their hands and said, enough. The Simpsons didn't create that frustration. They just gave it a voice. A really funny, painfully accurate voice. And for Rachel Zegler, that's the legacy of this whole saga. Not just a PR meltdown, not just a roasted movie, but a reminder that no matter how big the studio, how loud the press tour, or how modern the message, the audience still decides what sticks, and they've made their decision.
Every single white male is a piece of shit, and the woman is the hero, and all authority is bad, and all business is bad, but government is good. And most people don't know what they're watching. She, unfortunately, sort of pulled the curtain back, and people knew exactly what was going on.
Let's just state the obvious. When The Simpsons ends up doing a better job diagnosing a film's failures than the actual filmmakers, that's bad. That's not just satire, it's exposure. It's a bright yellow cartoon hand pulling the curtain back on everything fans have been shouting about for a year. They didn't need to name names. They didn't need to spell it out. Because everyone watching knew. Everyone connected the dots. The roast wasn't funny because it was outrageous. It was funny because it was true. And that's what made it dangerous. It said what Disney wouldn't, what most media wouldn't, what Rachel Zegler wouldn't dare admit, that somewhere along the way, the heart of this story got replaced with ego, that the magic got lost in the messaging, that the fans stopped being the priority and started being the problem.
When people watched it originally in 1937 in the theaters, it was an amazing experience because for most people, it was the first color movie. But second of all, people had so connected emotionally with the character of Snow White that when she eats from the apple and she dies, people were literally weeping in the theater because they liked the character of Snow White so much.
This isn't just about a movie bombing anymore. This is about how it bombed and who took it down with it. Rachel Zegler was never supposed to be the villain of this story. She was supposed to be the face of a modern Disney princess. Bold, confident, refreshing. But thanks to a few poorly chosen words, an avalanche of press missteps, and now a cartoon dragging her character like it owed them rent, that entire narrative collapsed. What's left is a cautionary tale, not just for actors, not just for studios, but for anyone who thinks they can rewrite a classic without understanding why it was loved in the first place. Because no matter how modern you try to make it, a fairy tale still needs a little humility and a whole lot of heart. This remake had neither.
Come on.
That's the face of a serial killer.
And if you disagree with the sentiment, just hit the unfollow button. I don't need your business.
Noted.
Thanks.
I'm a narcissist.
That she is. And by the way, the producer of Snow White, his son, knows it.
Here's the cold truth. This story's not going away. You can bury the movie. You can cancel the press tours. You can pretend the ratings never existed. But that Simpsons clip? That's eternal. That's already living rent-free in meme archives, YouTube compilations, and TikTok timelines. It's a cultural scar, one that future filmmakers will study, one that Disney should be studying right now. Because in a time when audiences are louder than ever and social media clips travel faster than trailers, the line between a PR slip and a reputation crisis has never been thinner. Rachel crossed it, Disney followed, and now everyone's left staring at the wreckage.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Say it louder so your other eye can hear you.
So we didn't do that this time.
The big question now is, what's next? Can Rachel recover? Can Disney bounce back from this? Can fans ever look at Snow White the same again? Here's the thing. Hollywood loves a comeback, but it doesn't give them out for free. Rachel's going to need to step back, rethink her game, and show she can connect with an audience instead of talking at them. And Disney? They better start listening again, because if they keep greenlighting remakes with more message than magic, the fans won't just tune out. They'll start turning on them. The Simpsons may have dropped the roast, but the culture lit the fire, and now we're all watching what burns next. If you're loving the breakdowns and brutal honesty, do the channel a favor. Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss when the next celebrity slip-up hits the fan. This story may be over, but trust me, Hollywood's got another mess coming real soon.